Hello and welcome to Crux Investor. We spoke earlier today to James Withell, the CEO of Rupert Resources. They're exploring for gold up in Lapland, Finland. And if you want our thoughts and opinions on the conversation today, and indeed the company itself, you can find that at cruxinvestor.com/club. Where you can also find detailed company reports, commentary from market experts from around the world on a variety of commodities and companies. There are training videos on there. There's also summaries of other interviews that we've done just to save you a little bit of time. And of course, there's a thriving community of investors sharing their thoughts and ideas with each other. So go along now and join them at cruxinvestor.com/club. And of course, we'd love your feedback too. So do give us a like, leave your comments below. And if you want to see what we talked about, take a look in the description below. James, how are you doing, sir?
Good, thanks. Good to see you again.
Yeah, it's been a while, like 2 months.
Yeah, well, I don't know, a couple of months, if that. Yeah, we're all sat in the same places, so there we go.
Yeah. But we wanted to get a hold of you because you put even more drill results out there. They are, as the rest have been, quite good, quite exciting. So we wanted to catch up with you. But so how have you been? What have you been up to in the last 2 months? Don't look like you've moved.
I guess we've just been busy working. I guess the irony is, you sort of stay in these same offices, but then in Finland, it's been keeping on going. Actually, I guess we just push on really with the work. And,
Now, is the team over there? I mean, have you jumped on an airplane and seen anyone?
No, so I've just been stuck here still. So the team's all been there, and the team is just obviously our team is all based up at the site, so they've just been getting on with it. We have actually, I guess, with the whole the COVID situation, we have seen COVID finally start to affect the area we've been working. So there's been a few more restrictions, but we've been able to carry on drilling, and those things have kept on moving through. And we just sort of put in place the ways to work through these things. But it's made it so much easier for us because everyone is there. Exploration manager is there, and we don't have to bring people in and out. So the drills keep on turning.
Fantastic. Okay, well, we're going to talk about Ikari in a second. But again, just for people new to this story, when it gives that 1 minute overview, and I'll pick it up from there.
Yeah, so Rupert Resources, it's a Canadian listed company, RUP on the TSXV. It's an exploration company for the most part. Our cornerstone assets are in northern Finland, in Lapland. The project is called Pahtavaara, and it's now about a 425 square kilometre project package. We have a permitted minor mill at the Pahtavaara site, which is a historic operating mine. Which sits there in active care and maintenance. And then over the last 3 years, we've really been stepping up regional exploration, and certainly over the last 2 years, been making a number of discoveries, 6 in total so far, and the most important of those and impactful for the company has been this Ikari discovery, which we made only back in April of this year, so it's a very new discovery. It's a very exciting one. Looks like it has very large scale to it on the gold side, and also a very good grade discovery. So yeah, we're very pleased with that, and we continue to try and demonstrate how good it could be.
Okay, I mean, again, just maybe talk through some of the grades that have been coming back from Ikari, because I want to talk about it in a second, but I also want to sort of an overview of what the plan is going forward from you. So
yeah, I mean, we have some the grades over very broad widths have been very impressive. I mean, the last couple of releases are 3.6 grams over 181 meters, and then you're seeing within these very broad intercepts. So that release had 2 plus 180 meter intercepts of over 3 grams. But even within those, you're seeing one of those had 5.7 grams over 84 meters. So you're seeing a series of these. The most recent release, that was in the one that came out just last week. 4.3 grams over 158 meters. But again, you're sitting within that one, we saw 7.5 grams over 52 meters. So it looks to be a big mineralized system. And whilst we see these very, very broad widths, plus 100 meter widths quite consistently through the strike, which is about 550 meters now, we're also beginning to see be able to get a real handle of this high grade element, which is also going to depth. So we're now drilling down to sort of 200, 290, 300 meters vertical now. So starting to, so that not only is it, this big broad system, but also there's this, potentially very good grade within it, which if we look to the future could well be, a very very viable underground mining grades as well, over big widths as well.
Okay, so look, it's been a really good year for you. If you think back at the beginning of this year, under $1, you're up over 570, you got 900 million market cap. I mean, it's just been exceptional. People have got really excited about the grades and the drilling program, the scale of this. But therein, I think what you said last time, comes the problem. As in, it's certain types of investors will probably not be interested in investing in you going forward because there's not enough leverage there. There's no growth. Is that right?
I don't think. Well, I think I'll go on and show you a couple of slides. I think because I think.
Do you want to? Let's do that. Let's do that.
It's very new, and I think people just need to understand that this is just a very small part of what we've been doing over the last few years, and also that these discoveries don't happen just overnight. So I'll share a couple of slides about the company, and we'll go from there. So hopefully you can.
I can see that.
See this slide in front of us. So I'll avoid putting it, and hopefully you can see the cursor. So just, I'm not going to go through every slide in the deck, but just picking out a couple of ones. So here you have our land package, part of our project land package. It's actually an updated slide because it's got the new licenses that we've picked up surrounding the area too. But here's our mill. Here's our Area 1 project. So the Ikkari discovery and all the discoveries that we've been making really beyond the mine are all in a small box, about 5 k's by 2.5 k's, to the western end of this license area. We have Agnico has its Kittilä mine just up here, about 65 k's away. So at the beginning, all our team live in this town of Sadankra, so that's why things carry on. But, this area is, as you can see, the grayed out areas, all these licenses that have been pegged by other companies, as well as ourselves. But obviously, we have a very large package there. But importantly, we're only just looking at, if we zoom into this area 1, it's just a very small piece of this overall package. In what we are now demonstrating is a really prospective part of the world. So I guess if you then just sort of zoom into that, to the geologists in the audience might get this, but effectively our Area 1, we refer to it in press releases as sitting on this big domain bounding structure that goes for 20 odd kilometers on our licenses. But again, we've so far, explored a lot in Area 1. It was certainly the most highest prospective area I talked about on the last call, didn't I, in terms of ranking targets and prioritizing and allocating capital. That was it. But we have other areas still to be explored along this structure as well, plus the area around the mine and the mill. So I think whilst the results have been fantastic and very impressive, I do believe that there's potentially more to come. I guess if I then just really focus in on Area 1, give people a look at that. And Ikkari is just one of 6 discoveries that we've made. And I guess you said, at the beginning of the year, 85 cents. Well, that was the price that Agnico came in and did the funding with us there. The shares were as low as in the 70s at the beginning of the year. But they came in because we'd already made the Heine Central discovery and the Heine North discovery. And, in its own right, these are very interesting discoveries. You just have to go back a year in our press releases to go and read them. But there was a different market, wasn't it? No one was really interested so much in exploration companies then as well. But you'll see us now go back and start, delineating the size and scale at things like Heine Central over the next few months, as well as Ikkari. So whilst Ikkari is, has a significant size and scale, and we can look at the latest results to see that in the latest press release. Certainly, all these other projects have still got to come to light. So have we got? I'm not sure. Growth is always a bit of a tough word, but certainly there's plenty more prospectivity across the license, and we're well funded, and we continue to explore outside of Ikkari. So, people shouldn't think that this is the end of this developing exploration scheme. Okay,
but so let's stick with this. So you're very concentrated on certain areas, and there are large swathes of, prospectivity where you haven't drilled, you haven't spent money, you haven't explored. But I'm trying to work out what does that mean in the context of your plan going forward? I mean, how long are people on this ride for? Do you think you can continue to sort of see the types of growth that you've seen in the second half of this year by delivering more targets, more drilling in itself is because different ways of coming at this, James, aren't there? You can kind of do step out programs, whether it be at ICRI or some of your other discoveries, and that's going to tell you a little bit more about what you've got there. Or you go and identify new targets, which might be even more exciting. I mean, so what's the plan in your head in terms of the strategy moving forward as to where you deploy your
so
drills?
I think that's important for people to understand, because obviously, 3 months worth of drill results just from ICRI, and people think, okay, well, makes you think, oh, well, they're just going to be drilling that. So we always have, I guess, in terms of our step back to this map has been generated by us by doing our own geophysics over the entire license area, and mapping as where we can of the license area. So I guess there's been a lot of all the, what I call the background, the groundwork has been done, all the preparation work that you do before what we call our base of till and our drilling goes on. So we have like a whole new generation part of the business, which is continuing to look for the next ICRI. So that is always going on. So there's basically one drill rig and this base of till rig, which is how we find these things. There's all these lines north to south on here. It's been working through this area here. It's currently working slightly off to the east of this image here in a new area that we're working on. But it's also been, as these images get up to date, you'll see more and more potential new areas. There's a new area emerging here called Haynes Central Extension, new areas to the northwest here of Haynes Central as well. So there's constantly this whole new part of the team is only focused on that, and the other part of the team is focused on doing the, demonstrating the size and scale of the existing discoveries. So there's probably been a lack of news on that new generation work, but that will start coming through in the next few months as we push that through.
Okay, so again, two things. You're talking to two different audiences there. So proving up and the extent of each of the existing discoveries is one thing, and who's that audience? Who are you trying to impress with that? Is it the market? Is it Agnico Eagle? Is it other people who may step in?
I think, the company has to evolve ultimately. Well, I guess we've always had a mine and mill at part of Ara that we've been doing drilling at, understanding. So we've been doing trade-off studies there, understanding the engineering side of it. And so we can do all that. We have good consultants that we work with on that. So we know how to do that part of the business. So, that's if you look at that project, that's the most, in terms of the mine, it's the most advanced project. But if you look at these are the new discoveries are moving up the curve very quickly. So they're moving through doing met work, doing environmental baseline work, preliminary work. So that all carries on. So that's sort of your demonstration of the potential value of them, starting to de-risk those assets and really trying to drive your fundamental value of the business and demonstrate, really that the business has very good underpinnings and value, and ultimately that there's a pathway for those projects to become producing assets in the future as well. And whether that's, and Rupert Resources is, has the capability and the contacts to be able to push them through to that side. So that's that one audience you're talking, and they could be, you're making sure that at all times that the market and the corporates and our peer group understands, is able to really try and get some sort of real value on this, whether it's an analyst or corporate development in another company. So that's that one audience, and the other audience is the continuing exploration. And I think, we're providing both as the key thing for us. We've got to keep both things going.
But again, the exploration side of things, you talked about, did you say one drill on that?
Yeah, one drill at this point in time.
But haven't you got enough money to have 2 drills or 3 drills?
Yeah, and I think, so we have 3 drills in the company running all the time. And 2 of those are at ICRI right now, and one of them's at one of the new projects. But even with that, and people say, oh, why don't you have, why haven't you thrown 5, 8, 10 drill rigs at this program? So I guess that is certainly with exploration. Well, we've made all these discoveries within a year, effectively, or let's say 15 months, with 2 to 3 drill rigs at the most. And we're very, I guess it comes back to this. You don't need to have 5 or 10 drill rigs. You have and you won't make effective exploration discoveries with 5 or 10 drill rigs. It just doesn't work like that. You have to process the information, understand what you're doing, and be very targeted about what you're doing. And because ultimately, for every hole you drill, it takes you 4 weeks or 4 or 5 weeks to really get all the information back to learn about it. So it doesn't matter whether you've got 10 drills doing that or 1 drill rig. You can't speed up that. You could just find yourself in a point of ever diminishing returns of what you're drilling, because you're drilling holes for the sake of drilling. So actually, we can very efficiently, with high productivity with our drills, we drill with 3 rigs, we're drilling in the order of 5,000 to 6,000 meters a month, which is still a lot of productivity.
Because they're relatively shallow holes.
Relatively shallow holes, but it's an easy place to work, and the companies, the Finnish companies we work with, do have high productivity levels, and the quality is good, and the lab turnaround is relatively good. So it's about the team size that it works. We can process that information in the right time frame, and make well-informed decisions, having spent what we consider the right amount of money to make those decisions.
So do you mind if you explain that a little bit more? Because I think there'll be people listening to this and go, I don't understand that. Surely more data is better. More data means more data. You know more about what you've got in a shorter period of time. Because let's face it, you've grown exponentially in the last 6 months in terms of market cap, in terms of value in the marketplace through the drill bit. So why is too much data too much?
I guess maybe stepping back a bit from this and just talking more philosophically about it. We're paying our geologists to be geologists, not data collectors. Data collecting is anyone can do data collecting. We have a huge amount of data every day coming in from this site, so we might be drilling. If you think about it, on a month, let's do it 5,000 meters of drilling, 41 chemical elements coming in for each meter of that drilling. That's, you're talking massive data just on that. And then we continuously have geophysics programs coming in here to run on short-term projects. But the big downfall for me, for the exploration companies overall in the industry, is the fact that, the data never really gets thoroughly looked at and understood. And that's often why you miss making discoveries. So you might drill, we might step out from one of these projects and drill maybe a short intercept that the market thinks, they just drilled like 5 meters at, 5 grams or something beyond something that already is there. But for us, that's a very small bit of the information set, that gold grade over the meters. It's about what else we've learned. What does the geology look like? What's the geological setting? This image that's in front of you didn't exist 18 months ago. It's a brand new geological map. There was no understanding of this area whatsoever. It's 20 meters of cover. So it evolves all the time, but you can only evolve at a certain pace. And it doesn't matter how many people you put on that job. It's always going to be a challenge. It's a challenge for the industry as a whole.
Okay. So are your shareholders, current and maybe future shareholders, in this with you for the long run? Because we're looking at area 1 of a very large land package, and you're nowhere near understanding it as you're describing that you want to on here. So how do you envisage the company growing in the future? Is this a case of, I am going to set it up so someone walks here and takes it off our hands? Or can you divide up the land packages and monetize this for shareholders over a long period of time? Because there's a lot that you've still got to look at.
But it's the whole thing. We do, there's a lot of data getting collected, and so maybe not fast enough and not enough. But I think every time we drill another hole, we learn more about the entire area geologically than we did do before. And so then you can still prioritize and rank based on that knowledge all the time. So you can ultimately, there'll be areas of this license package that we feel like no longer prospective ultimately over time. So you just keep on re-ranking and reprioritizing that, and I guess if you looked at what's an aim internally, and maybe just we hope by next summer, for instance, to have effectively done a first pass sweep across this entire original 300 square kilometers of license. to have then narrowed down which areas we think are the best that should require further work. I guess, then it's a case of, well, if someone came to acquire you, it's to demonstrate that you've done that work as much, so you put that together, that work, and it would be part of that discussion through an M&A that you on a technical basis, that you discuss, well, actually, we think there's further upside here. Are you going to reward us for that through a transaction? Or actually, do you just want to divide off this part of it and we'll retain the rest of the license? Or how do we retain some further upside to the rest of the license? And I think you can have those sensible discussions through an M&A strategy. As a company of, this company has transformed quite significantly over a 12-month period from being a company with a mine and some new discoveries, but now being a company with a mine and potentially another whole mining area in the making. So you can project a path forward for this company to evolve as itself. It is a good quality assets. So then you would retain all the land package and you just work on it over a long period of time.
Okay. Yeah. What I'm hearing is it's a long way to go before you need to make those sorts of decisions. So let me ask you in another way, because I noticed something in your presentation, which was ensuring investment is accretive to valuation. I guess that's how you spend your money and time.
Yeah.
Right? Which you sort of answered with regards to drill bit, but then maximize the return on shareholder capital. Now that is interesting because 12 months ago that meant something else compared to probably what it does today. So how has your thinking had to evolve over that time?
Yeah, so obviously it's this whole, as an exploration, or as any company, you have a certain amount of shareholder capital that you issue over time. And obviously for Rupert Resources, we have the company, you can go through the balance sheet, but it's in the order of $100 million worth of shareholder capital. Some of that was already issued before we started the company. So because it was a shell that existed to have $30 or $40 million. We have, of the other 60, obviously we're still sitting on $30 million of cash right now. So, there's been $35 million worth of capital expended. And so it's about, but regardless of that, the balance sheet is what it is. It's how can you make the highest possible return on that from here. And we spend a lot of time, thinking about that in terms of, is the best, obviously exploration is a phenomenal, successful exploration can create a huge amount of value in a very short period of time on that shareholder's equity that's expended. You can see that with Ikkari in terms of money spent in the ground, maybe getting in the order of $5 to $10 million for obviously the valuation of the company today, which is phenomenal. But that's sort of step one of that process. From here, it's a case of how do you look forward and see the best route to making a return on shareholders' capital, people that come into the stock today, and is that through modeling a share structure going forward where you develop the mine and how much equity you'd have to issue and understanding that, or having a acquisition at a significant premium to today's price that reflects the value of the assets, the assets that we've identified. It's a constant iterative process, I think, is the answer. So
he has influence over you because over 50% of this is founders, friends, and management, right? That's huge. For a company of this size. That's significant. I know Agnico are in there for something less than 15% or so, but you've got no institutions telling you how to play this. You haven't got so much retail influencing or shaping this. Do you think that's been better for you guys to have that kind of freedom to do this? I mean, it's obviously working. Do you think it will continue to work, or do you think people at some point will go, do you know what, this is good enough. It's time to move on?
I think it's a very good question in terms of that. I think we've been very, very fortunate, and I think this is, it goes through this other issue. As exploration companies said before, you have to be quite aggressive in your exploration spend. Look at some of the other great successful exploration companies like Ivanhoe and things like that. They're always very, very well funded from the beginning by a relatively small shareholder base ultimately. But that's how you need that commitment and their commitment long term to put that risk capital up, which sometimes isn't there in the market, or certainly isn't there in the market when you want it to be, when the market is probably at its lows. I think at this point in time, we're beginning to see our share register evolve. We're beginning to see institutional ownership come into the shares, and certainly, to progress this company going forward, we will be trying to evolve that share structure and bring in more institutions, and expand the retail side of it as well, because we think this is it can be a very good, long-term accretive investment. I guess your point is there, will the shareholders come to the conclusion, it's just good enough? I think our job as the management of the company is to make sure that we've demonstrated what is good enough, that make sure we have done that work, make sure we know through everything that they're doing on site is that actually, that's why we don't, a good example is that, why don't we just go and drill holes next to each other at IPRI for the sake of it, or, and just drill more high-grade results? We're not doing that. We're continuing to step out and make sure that you demonstrate as quickly as possible what it could be. And that either keeps the people from not think it's good enough, or gives you that route to do the next stage of the company, or bring in other investors.
Is that how we'll spot when you've had enough, when you start just doing step out programs?
when I started turning holes in the middle, well, look, you've got to do a part of that to prove up get the confidence level up in resources. But I think we instead with the expert, that's why we have the exploration keep on going, to keep the exploration new generation stuff to keep on going. At all, whether it's us or a big producing company, they have that new generation team looking for the next discovery all the time, because that's ultimately what you need to demonstrate long life in the business.
Yeah, I think that's right. But also, you're an ex-capital markets guy, analyst as well. You're gonna have an idea in your mind as to what numbers you want to be able to put out into the market to attract a buyer. Okay, you're going to know what attractive looks like to them. At the moment, it's early days. It's great numbers, but it's early days. So that's going to shape your thinking in terms of the program that you've got. I get the continued exploration bit, and trying to find new targets. That's fantastic. But can you share with us what does that moment look like? What do the numbers look like in your head, which says, do you know what? I think we've built this in the shape that we need to go and have proper conversations with, whether it be Agnico Eagle or Anglo American down the road.
Yeah. Okay. I think you're right. I spend a lot of time as an ex-capital markets guy and just modelling things all the time, whether it's part of our or even any of our early stage deposits. The key thing for me is that having modelled whatever thousands of these things over my career, the exceptional deposits, your average gold deposit in the world generates like an after-tax profit of 10%, which is pretty disappointing, ultimately, given all the risk that comes through to it. But that's just the fact of life. It's just an average thing. So our job is, if we're beginning to see things that are above average, and the above average range is like plus 20 and 25, in that sort of 25% after-tax potential returns. That is, that's our whole aim, and that's been our whole aim of running this company, to find those exceptional style return projects, because then once you have enough of that information, and that's what we do internally, try and gather that information, whether it's geology, metallurgy, understanding infrastructure issues or the environment, then you can sit down and have that serious conversation. That's our job, and I guess that's what I refer to as that's what management is doing at the company all the time. So ultimately, at some point in time, for any deposit, it's always worth having a conversation with others about it, as an explorer. I guess investors and potential shareholders should know that that's what we're doing all the time. Should trust us that we are, we will, whenever that day comes or that situation comes, we'll have as, as many of those boxes ticked as that much information to demonstrate how good it could be.
But the bit I'm trying to get at is, because you've reached a certain market cap, the leverage isn't there for a lot of guys who are thinking, I need the multiples, I need to see growth here, is timing, the timing imperative. You could be saying, well, I'll tell you what, we're going to gear everything up to hit this cycle, or because of the scale and opportunity here, we're not going to worry about it till the next cycle. So those are two different types of companies, two different types of approaches. And the growth profile is somewhat different as a result. So, what company are we looking at?
You're right in terms of the cycle, and you do have to take a view on the cycle, to be honest, and where you are in it, ultimately. That said, your only defense against that as an explorer is to make sure you find the best possible deposit, because it doesn't matter what cycle you're in, people will want it. People will want it. Basically, they'll want to own that deposit, whatever the weather, whatever the gold price, because it is going to be a business that they will want.
But the pricing will be different. Your optionality will be different.
But that's why you have to, and the only control that you have there, or only control we have as a company, is to do it as effectively as fast as possible. Is one way to put it, but as efficiently as possible. It goes back to a question, people might say, why haven't you got 10 rigs? Well, you don't need 10 rigs to drill off, to demonstrate the scale of the potential deposit. You only need Ikkari deposit. The continuity is so good, 80 meter centers is more than good enough. If I was drilling off a narrow vein deposit, I'd be really worried at this point in time that I wasn't ever going to understand it in time. But if I'm drilling off something of this scale, I can step out and demonstrate actually, it's X meters now. It could be this. Got some indications that it might extend, much further. And so, it's about doing the smart things as quickly as possible. The best way to do it. So then, you come back to the cycles thing. Well, that's why you're doing it at a relatively high pace. You want to be in front of it. That's why we already engage with environmental consultants, already engage with people, because I understand that your time window isn't that long. Ultimately, it could not be very long. Things could change in the world next year or the year after, certainly.
Yeah. Okay. So you talk about doing smart things well, so you can be efficient. Is one of those smart things putting out resources as soon as possible?
Getting to a stage where we have that information, ultimately, doing them internally and continually doing them internally to a point where we have the confidence to put something out externally, for sure. Because you do have to get to that point. We are people who should help back. What have we got? 50 holes into the deposit, potentially quite a big deposit. So, we're talking mid next year in reality of having something like in the public domain. But I guess we, in terms of the information that we're disclosing to the market, we'd expect people to be able to follow on and understand what the scale of it could be.
Okay. And so rightly or wrongly, people interpret the number that you put out as reflective of your ambitions, of the size of the opportunity. So do you need it to be a certain number before you'll put it out? Some people don't mind. If you haven't got much, putting out 1 million ounces sounds great.
Yeah, but it comes back to people are already factoring in that. Look at the valuation of the company. People are already factoring it's going to be a deposit of scale. So if you come out with a deposit that's subscale, people aren't going to be happy, are they? So I think look, you do it at the right time when you've got the right information. You can't hide away from these things. They come back to get you eventually. You can't. Exploration companies. Ultimately, at some point, you've got to put it on the table what it is, and that's it. And it's the classic thing. The one thing I can't control is what people, is I can provide all the information, but I can't control what the market's going to pay for that information in terms of the share price. I don't control that, but ultimately we provide all that information. At that point, we will come out with a deposit and we go back to, I said, everything we do to try and, when we come out of that deposit, that people really understand what the economics of that thing, or potential economics of it could be.
Okay.
Because ultimately it doesn't, the size of the deposit is one thing. but how much free cash flow it could make is a totally different thing. At certain gold price, that's what really matters.
Okay, so mid-year next year is what we should be looking for.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's we haven't, it's the first time I'm really talking about it publicly in this forum. But I think that's, we'll try to be delivering that kind of on that sort of time frame. Yeah.
And a big number.
Trying to lead me down a route there.
Yeah. Did you spot it?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it's
right.
quite subtle.
It's very subtle. Right. Well, James, thanks very much for the update. That's fantastic. Keep drilling. Are we expecting lots more drill results more often? Is that the plan?
I think. Well, I guess since we spoke, there's been a couple of releases, so it's been every 3 weeks between now and Christmas. I expect to get another, something come out between now and Christmas. And then obviously head into the new year. But nothing stops in Finland, really. I mean, it just carries on going. The drills keep on turning. We do have a short break over Christmas, but ultimately the winter doesn't stop things. In fact, it gets easier to drill in the winter. So, if anything, the winter's been a bit slow coming this year in Finland. So we'll have better access, hopefully, in a few weeks' time to do more drilling from where we really want to do it from.
Beautiful. So, appreciate your time today, James.
Hold on next year. Thank you very much for your time.
Speak to you soon. Cheers.